I was a special investigator for Child Protective Services in Texas from February 2012 to March 2013. I already was a libertarian whenever I joined, but I kind of bought into the idea that Child Protective Services would be the one agency where I could actually help children, though they were a branch of the government. They'd be the ones who would actually be helping. And I found that I was wrong on every single level. What I saw was not just normal bureaucratic corruption that's reported on local news, but an entire system that was kind of built to fail. The power the investigators had and CPS held, which was kind of the power over every single child, and the ability to be able to destroy lives, is one that wasn't really handled carefully. I didn't quit because, as some people in the agency stated, I didn't have the toughness for it, or this takes special kind of people. I quit because what we were doing was not helping people, but instead destroying lives. I came to think of it in the same way Judge Brian Lindsay explained it, which was there is no system ever devised by mankind that is guaranteed to rip husband and wife or father, mother and child apart so bitterly than our present family court system. My first case was very much my best case, in the sense that it seemed like a clear-cut kind of situation where there was a drug bust at a home, and there were children there who were being forced to take a shit around the areas where the drugs were in order to prevent people from coming in to steal them. There was no running electricity in the house, but the drug dealers themselves actually owned like a Hummer and a number of nice cars. And there was a mother there who we were pretty sure was on drugs. The mother cried and screamed, and the children cried and screamed, and neighbors came out saying, "Please don't take away these children. Please don't send them to a foster home." Supposedly, we couldn't find any placement besides a foster home, which I still doubt even now. And it seemed like one of the situations where, oh, look, we're actually helping. But in foster homes, you have a way higher chance of being raped, molested, abused, and killed than you do in an actual home where you're already being abused. And that one case was the best case I ever had. From there, it was cases where there was maybe a father who was smoking marijuana 2 weeks ago, and then you end up having to set him up in a situation to where you're going to end up traumatizing the kids because you're going to tell the dad he has to leave the home. There was one case where there was a removal involving some children who were hanging out outside, and Child Protective Services found that to be improper, so the children will have to be removed from that case and thrown into a foster home. There was one case after another where what we were really doing was enforcing the war on drugs more than enforcing the war on child abuse, because the vast majority of cases we had were not for physical abuse, but they were supposed neglect or just cases that were completely made up, and then we'd have to ask these children questions regarding them being molested, abused, neglected, and emotionally threatened in certain cases where it wasn't even occurring whatsoever, really fucking up these kids. And we did everything through brute force rather than any kind of rational means, which is, I guess, to be expected from any kind of government organization. When you're talking about Child Protective Services, you have to think about incentives, because every single agency runs off of incentives, and in the family law system you have an incentive actually to remove children and to find alleged child abuse, because without child abuse no one continues to get paid. That's how you get funded. Now, with foster homes, the reason why they have an incentive for abuse is a different kind of abuse, which is the war kind of on children's minds. A foster home is funded, or at least a foster parent is given more money for every single disability that a child has. So if you have a kid who has just been removed from his home, has been removed from his family, his community, his church, his school, and then you stick him in this situation where he's meeting these people that he does not know, he's very, very high stress. He might have been malnourished from the last home, so you have a kid who's going to be called ADHD, bipolar, schizophrenic, an insomniac, and a number of other disorders, and they'll pop you on a shitload of pills in order to remedy that so-called situation. So what you have is you have foster homes which are being incentivized to dope kids. Does that mean every single foster home is bad? No. Does that mean every single foster parent is bad? Absolutely not. I got some responses actually from some people who I believe were concerned that I was making that broad statement. I'm absolutely not. I'm simply pointing out the incentives and chances for corruption in Child Protective Services and Texas family, or just family law in general, which are not small. The whole basis for Child Protective Services is very much a kind of based primarily on the supposition that the parents that you're going to be dealing with from the get-go are guilty.
Right. So for the parents who are not, in fact, good foster parents, how do they go about getting all of these diagnoses for these children?
Well, the thing is, generally there's a psychological evaluation which can be done by some state doctor who states, oh, well, this kid has this, and this. We need to put him on such drugs. And this runs the same way that, it kind of works when it comes to parents yelling about their kids being a nuisance to them,
right.
Which is the pediatrician or the person doing the psychological evaluation basically is just trying to calm down the situation as quickly.
Now arrives the hour of action.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury.
To subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws.
All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
And we're going to take our country back from these people.
Take back our constitutional God-given rights. You damn right. You damn right.
Now arrives the hour of...
You damn right. You damn right. States are profiting off the destruction of our families. What do we want? Justice! States are profiting off the destruction of our families. You damn right. States are profiting off the destruction of our families. What do we want? Justice! States are profiting off the destruction of our families.
And we're going to take our country back from these people.
You damn right. You damn right.
Now arrives the hour of action.
Hey! Welcome to the Monday edition of the first annual in Clarkesville, Georgia, Remembrance of Nancy Scheafer event show, live at 5. Thank you for watching. We have 4. I'm broadcasting through the event page, so I need you guys to share this as much as possible. I just shared it on a bunch of the pages I contribute to, as well as groups I'm in. So really, the only notifications that will be given are people who have clicked interested or going to the event itself. And I wanted to show Carlos Morales's one of his interviews from, I think that was back in 2012, because he worked for CPS. He's a non-victim advocate, and I know a lot of us have mutual or are mutual friends with him. I think we have 89 mutual friends, and I sent him a friend request. I've never talked to him before. I don't remember seeing his stuff before. I mean, he's right on topic with everything that Nancy said. He's reiterating as a former CPS employee. And I'm just finding this stuff, to me, it's old stuff on YouTube. And I ran across that video, and it's a video I'm going to share at the event when everything's first starting up before we officially start. And I'd love to be able to talk to him in person, because I never have. So Belinda is going to be joining us today through the phone, I think. She just finished grocery shopping. So, you know, she's in the midst of doing her personal stuff. So she won't come on video. You know, I had enough time to put on my mascara and blush, makeup, everything, so I'm good to go. I even put water in my hair and slicked it back so I didn't have to wear my hat. So the description of the show is what I want to get to. So last night, or no, today. Well, anyways, even before that, yesterday, I went to the ER because I had another severe panic attack. I have no idea why. I have them on a regular basis. You know, I don't take any antidepressants. I don't do any drugs. What I have is a very low dose Xanax, and if I feel a panic attack coming on, I could take a half of one of those, and I guess 99.99% of the time it takes care of it. So yesterday, I felt a little bit overwhelmed with everything I had to do. I knew that, and I wanted to wake up Sunday morning, you know, stay in bed, watch a movie, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, something I haven't felt in like a year. You know, chest pain, tingling, the stars, and initially I'm like, I know exactly what this is. It's a panic attack, so I calm down. Even talking about it makes me a little verklempt. And so I calm down, it goes away, and then I get up just for a second, and boom, it's right back, 100%. But even worse. So, you know, I go upstairs, I'm like, you know, my mom's up there, she doesn't work on Sundays, and I said, Mom, hey, you might have to call an ambulance, I'm not sure. And she's like, oh, all right. She knew exactly what was going on because this has happened before. The last time, though, I was in the Home freaking Depot, and they had to call an ambulance. Yeah, I'm really susceptible to stress, apparently. That's ultimately what made my hands stop working because of the carpal tunnel. The stress inflamed that, made it so I couldn't even sleep through the night. I was in so much pain. And obviously I didn't have insurance. Obamacare hadn't kicked in at that point. So I was paying for everything out of pocket. So I was going to the ER for panic attacks. Did the whole full onslaught of stress tests to make sure my heart was okay, which it is. And they reiterated that yesterday with the blood tests and the EKGs. My health is 100%. For whatever reason, subconsciously, I can't deal with stress on a high level. And I think this is Belinda. Hello, Belinda. 8805, you are on live at 5. Who are we speaking with, please? For whatever reason. Hello, Belinda.
Hey.
Hey. All right, I can hear you.
Hello, Belinda.
I hear a little bit of background noise.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I can hear you watching. So just turn that off or turn it down because there's a delay. So anyways, I was just talking. I got into what happened yesterday with the panic attack. You know, a lot of people have panic attacks. Men seem to be more susceptible to panic attacks than women. I'm not sure why that is. There's, you know, men's suicides are much higher than women's suicides. One statistic that was interesting to me is when no-fault divorce was created, women's suicides went down, men's suicides went up. Just an interesting fact. And today, because of what I want to talk to, I actually shared this to groups that I usually don't share a lot to. Groups that, some of these groups I was removed from because of my neutrality and wanting to help both men and women. But I keep an eye on some of the more extreme groups that I have access to. Just because if I'm sharing something that has anything to do with men versus women or why men feel a certain way, I feel like I should stay, at least have access to those groups so I can share these things. So I shared this to a couple of groups I haven't posted in months and months, maybe a year. And it's because of something that came up today. So I started talking about this, and then I went into what happened to me yesterday with the panic attack. And if you're a man and you've been through a lot, or a woman, and you get severe anxiety to the point where it's debilitating, like me, you'll be able to relate to this. And and I don't know how it's triggered. There's nothing I can. Every single time I go into the ER for this, it's like, so what happened? I don't know what happened. It's nothing that I'm thinking about consciously. It's all subconscious. But I know I have a lot to do, which I've taken care of today. One of which is I need what's called a what is it called? There's a certain card that can go from a camcorder to your laptop, so you can get the picture from your camcorder on the laptop. And so what I wanted to do is
SD card.
What?
The SD card?
No, that's not it. It's something card. I was on the phone. Nobody sells them anymore. But see, what happens is your camcorder has HDMI out only, and your laptop has HDMI out only, and that is to prevent people from pirating videos, downloading them, writing them on a CD, and selling them. So what you need is this specific card that goes in between your camcorder and your laptop, so you can get that camcorder screen on your laptop, which I wanted to pull, obviously, and put on OBS so I could stream the way you're seeing now on site. The problem is there's no internet there, so we'd only be able to use Wi-Fi hotspot. So I did a test yesterday, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me to try doing that. It'll be skippy and everything. So me getting that card and making that happen isn't worth it at all. So what I'm going to do at the event is stream just with the little 360 camera, so you can play around, scroll around. If it skips, it doesn't matter, and record with the big camera. Also record right on the podium with the little GoPro, kind of like it'll be like down here next to your face. So when I go and edit people's speeches or performances, I can go in between the little GoPro right next to your face and the big camera that zoomed onto you. And so this morning, there was a post brought to my attention, one that I was tagged in, and I was surprised that I was tagged in it because it seemed very negative from the post that I was tagged in about a post. And what it said, it was a post that originated from Nancy Scheafer, Nancy Scheafer's daughter, that said that the family hasn't been contacted and they're not going to be attending. So I reached out to John, who I spoke to, and cleared this all up. And you have to remember that Nancy lives in the town. I don't know how many people in Habersham County will see this. Not as many as other people around the country. But from what I understand, I guess since she's in that county, she didn't, really want to say she was going or not going, and she made that post. And so I talked to John, and of course John wants to clear that up. John may be attending, maybe not, but he will at least be writing something for either myself or Belinda to read, which basically says how much the family appreciates what we're doing and they support us. But there was something else he said that was very concerning, and it relates to what we talked about on our original conversation about fringe groups, conspiracy theories, and not true things that are obviously false. And that brings me, since this relates to me, this brings me right to a fringe group called Op Expose CPS. People who usually use swear words and focus on conspiracy theories, run by Kara Zimmerman, aka Faith Livingston. There was another person, a bearded lady friend of hers. I can't remember his name, but he was at the separate Million Parrot March group, and somebody who out of the blue tagged me in some derogatory post, and also tagged people who I don't get along with, like Kyle Paskowitz, Cash Jackson, and CJ Abernathy, and that post actually sparked something very positive in some of those people and I working together, because it was Kara Zimmerman and Kyle Paskowitz's relationship, which was severed because of Kara's, she has no moral compass, let's say. Not a nice person, more like an evil. If there's an evil member of our community, Kara Zimmerman is definitely that person. And I want to make everybody aware of this person and Op Expose CPS as the fringe group that the Scheafers are very concerned about and don't want it to have anything to do with. So groups like this, if anybody's making any progress, like Cash Jackson running for governor, or even Jennifer Wynn running for governor, or Melissa Hamilton running for governor, or you and I creating a successful event where we want support from the Scheafers, since it's not her doing it, she wants to undermine it as much as possible. And I saw this in the Million Parrot March, but at the time she had the permits, and I tried to work out everything with everybody just to make the event happen. And then, like I told Kyle Paskowitz at the time, look, let's just get through this, and then after the fact, we never have to deal with her again. We know how she is, who she is, how she acts, and that's it. But unfortunately, he couldn't get that far, and because of a breakup with a member of Restoring Freedom, it made things even more complicated and even more worse. And so what John asked me today was something that I thought I would never hear ever in my life. This group, Op Expose CPS, Kara Zimmerman, Lisa Rutherford, Faith Livingston, and that bearded lady who tagged me and Kyle and Cash together and CJ in a post, said that I was a child abuser. Said that I was a child abuser, and Nancy Scheafer, Nancy Schaefer's daughter, saw this. Somehow saw this. And I really don't understand why anybody would think that of me. Anybody who knows me closely, even people I don't get along with, like Christy Beck, knows how much my son means to me, knows that I would never do anything to physically hurt anybody. It was just astounding that Op Expose CPS and these people would try to undermine our community moving forward. So what I'm relating this to must be this right here, which is, let me bring this up. Here is a mugshot of me. 2 different mugshots of me. All right? There
Okay.
you go. You will not find this if you search Ted Fogg. My given name is Theodore Edward Davidson Fogg, if you don't know me. And so this is a subject that I used to talk about a lot before my ex-wife and I got along. And part of the reason why I gravitated more towards men's groups, you know, which some of them have a tendency to just bash women, and I didn't agree with, because I could see that more than 50%, close to 70% of the community is made up of women victims, victim advocates. So it didn't really soak in. But when I think back to this event, and now that I'll be, you know, going and staying with my ex-wife to spend time with my son over spring break after this event, this is something I don't really like bringing up, but I have talked about it extensively publicly with Johnny Pankow and Christy Beck, and I would, you know, because of something so negative, taking something like this and accusing me of being a child abuser, I would very much like to reach out to Christy Beck and Johnny Pankow, who know that's untrue. People who had a falling out because of the ending of the Million Pair March and the ending of my relationship with Christy Beck. I would appreciate if they would come out and say that, from what they know of me, this is not true. But so I would like to explain what happened. And since I haven't talked about this in over a year, and now, like I said, that me and my ex-wife get along royally, this is going to be even harder for me to explain, because me, her friends, my family, her family, this is something that we don't talk about. And maybe this is the spark to finally just get rid of this completely from the internet, because it doesn't belong there. So when this happened, you can see me in 2 different shirts, so it's 2 different times. I'm going to get rid of it now because I don't want to look at it anymore. I'll even get rid of it over here. But so if you can imagine, this is right at the beginning of the recession, right? So Florida was hit hard, very hard. And I went from making, and this is why I even stayed in Florida. I didn't even want to be in Florida, but I'm there at the peak of the bubble. You know, I could walk down the street, say almost any ridiculous number I wanted to make, you know, because I went legally, you know, I'm a contractor. I made sure I was a legal contractor down there. I made a lot of money, so I stayed. And, you know, I'm younger, you know, at the time. I moved there when I was 28, and I didn't know anybody except, no, I knew nobody. I stayed there, and so there was a bar called Monk's Steamer Bar. If you've never been to a steamer bar, it's really great. They do the whole oyster thing right in front of you. You know, oysters Rockefeller. I mean, everybody loves that. And so the Tampa Bay Derby Darlings, a roller derby league, had an event there, and I knew about them, and so I went to that event, and I met my future now ex-wife, and became a referee for a more local team called the Braden Tucky Bombers. And life was great. It was an amazing time. We had so much fun. We got married. Blah, 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 blah. We had a son, and right when my son was born, Cash Henry Davidson Fogg, the recession hit. And me not being local, but being a licensed professional contractor, I was done. You know, a lot of people from out of state who were contractors left for the same reason. But I was able to, you know, we even had to move in with her parents for a while. You know, I had a really good friend, Mike Osborne, who ended up shooting himself in the chest and dying, you know, right during the recession. You know, he was able to get me some work, and then eventually I found a local contractor who was willing, you know, I could subcontract for him, make less than half of what I was used to making, but, you know, I have my only son. My only son was just born, and, you know, I didn't want to leave. You know, my wife's family was in the area, so we made everything work out. But we ended up living way far away from where we originally lived because of money, and money was really, really tight. And we weren't, you know, because of that, things were very, very tense. And one night, and let me say that at the time, before 3D printing really came out, I've had businesses casting things. I even made roller derby trophies and sold them all over the world to try to supplement my income. And so I'd work 8 or 10 hours with an hour drive both ways, and then come home, try to spend some time with my son, usually fall asleep on the floor with him propped up against me, and then go right back into the shop and start creating things and start casting things, because I made roller derby trophies, and I also had a couple of customers who I would cast things for, you know, mementos and different things, whatever. I cast all kinds of different stuff. And so that took a great toll on our relationship as well, because all I did was work. I'd come home from work, try to play with cash for a little bit. Every single day I'd fall asleep, because as soon as he was asleep, I went into the shop and tried to work until like 2 in the morning, and then be up by 6 the next day. I mean, at this point I'm in my early 30s, and no stress, no panic attacks yet. So, you know, I did everything I could to be as successful as possible. And it wasn't really quite enough. So, some of the casting stuff fell through. That took another toll on us. And one night, you know, very late at night, you know, it's like 2 in the morning. I just finished up in the shop. Cash is crying. I went to his crib, picked him up, and I'm feeding him. I think Brandy and I had just gone through an argument earlier that night. You know, it was like, why are you working so much, and all the, you know, the normal stuff. And so I'm trying to put Cash back to sleep. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I just made my lunch for work the next day, and my ex-wife comes out and says something. You know, I think she was sick. I don't know. And remember, we don't do drugs. Brandy has never done a drug. In high school, I experimented. But I can't even smoke weed. I wish I could, but I don't even smoke weed. We drink once in a while. That's about it. So I'm trying to put Cash back to sleep. Brandy comes out very upset, saying I woke her up. And to me, after working and driving to my regular job and then trying to fill these contracts I have for the casting, I'm like, I don't care. You know, I'm like, not even sarcastic. I'm like, I don't care that you're awake, that I woke you up. You know, I wasn't nice about it. I was on my wit's end at the time. I remember that. So, you know, whatever was going through her head, I don't remember. She said she was going to call the police. So, and now remember, you don't know this because I haven't told you, but I was brought up never to involve the police in anything. I mean, we lived just down the street from the police. As kids, we'd play in the woods, go to the police station in fatigues, you know, camo stuff, and they have mug shots of all of us, you know, when we were kids. just playing. But I was brought up never to call the, what's in the family, only a dirty bird shits in its own nest. Excuse my French. You don't involve the police. But my ex-wife's family, her dad is a former state trooper, then a private detective for the same county, Manatee County, where my divorce took place. So however she was raised, she was, you call the police first. So her reaction to me being overly sarcastic, and if you know me, I'm very much overly sarcastic, also overworked and pretty angry at the fact that I couldn't go to sleep at 2 in the morning and have my ex-wife come out and take care of our son. Work was coming up in 4 hours. So she came out, threatened me to call the police. I put my son down in his crib in the other room, and I'm like, what the F are you talking about? Why do you even say that to me? And she got on her cell phone. I don't know if she was going to call the police or not. So there was something, a bowl or something on the counter, I remember. I mean, we're talking, my son's 9, so 8 years ago or more. There was a bowl, the bowl like that, the bowl went flying, hit the wall, and then she really freaked out. Really freaked out. I mean, just crazy how these things escalate. She came over, she went around, I'm like, don't call the police. But why are you calling the police? Came around, reached into her drawer, and started pulling out a knife. I grabbed her hand, turned her around, pinned her up against the fridge. At that point, all hell breaks loose, because now my hands are on her. I think she's going to attack me. Obviously, I just restrained her. So she yells to her other son, Elvis, go next door and call the police. And I'm like, I'm done with this whole situation. And this is late January in Florida, so it's not super warm out at 2 in the morning. So I'm just like, just made sure she was away, ran to my car, and just left. I drove to the freaking Home Depot, slept in my car, went to work the next day, 4 hours later. And I was so upset with the situation that I just decided that night to go get a hotel down, it was about 3 miles from where we lived at the time. And I figured I'd just stay there for a couple of days and let her call me. I was very upset with how that went down. And like I said, this is why initially coming into this community, I gravitated more towards men's groups. So anyways, it was probably, so I don't remember exactly which day, but there was a couple of days I worked. I got a hotel, then I think it was Saturday. Saturday morning I got a call from my brother, who at the time lived in Maine or southern New Hampshire, I can't remember. But my brother said that there was a warrant for my arrest. So I called up, I called the sheriff's department. That was Charlotte County in Florida, right? Which is known in the area to be the worst county in Florida, second only to Grady Judd's Polk County, known for planting evidence and everything. So this person said, or this sheriff who I was talking to said, there isn't a warrant for you, but there's an open something. I don't remember what the term is. I tried to look it up. I can't find it. I had never heard it before. An open something. And he said, if you don't come down to the sheriff's office and clear this up, there will eventually be a warrant. So what I found out is in Florida, and I've been booked before, I was in Nashville and got in some trouble, I got in some trouble at home, nothing bad, just, when you're young and dumb and you don't know these things happen. So when you go into booking, generally, if you get arrested for something and you're not drunk or intoxicated in any way, you get a booking date. But not in Florida. What happens in Florida if you get arrested, they make you stay overnight, and then the next morning they book you in front of a booking judge. It's the only state that does this, to my knowledge. It's archaic. So what I found out is, for me to go down and talk to the sheriff's office, if I was to be booked into jail or booked into the whatever, I would have to spend the night in jail. And I called a few people and made sure this was correct. So if I'm going to spend a night in jail, I don't want to remember it. So I went and I bought, like, not a fifth, but a quart of whiskey. I drove to the sheriff's office. In the parking lot, I drank that whole quart or whatever it was, and went in, and sure enough, yep, and I have a shirt on kind of like this, a darker shirt. And by the time they took that mugshot, I was drunk, and luckily I don't remember anything about it. So after I paid the booking, wife came down, picked me up that next day. We talked this through. We never really resolved it. But actually there was no bail to pay. That's right. There was something called, if it was a first offense, even though there was no offense, you could do something where you're kind of on probation and you didn't have to pay. I'm like, well, yeah, it's the middle of a freaking recession. I'd rather not pay anything. I have a family to support, and I have to get back to work. So I did whatever they said to do, and I went about my life. Right, everything to me was over. That charge was later dropped, but then I had to go meet with somebody because of this thing that I didn't have to pay bail, and they're like, so give me a urine test. I'm like, a urine test for what? I don't do anything. This has nothing to do with drugs. Like, they'll just do a urine test. Okay, I did the urine test. So a week later, I'm told I have to meet with this guy again. I go back. He's like, so your urine test has failed. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So my urine test has failed for what? For alcohol. I'm like, alcohol? I don't do drugs. I don't really drink that much. I have to be at work every day. You know, I'm a contractor, you know? He's like, well, you failed because of alcohol. I'm like, nobody even told me I couldn't drink. So now I go back to booking because I drank. And that's the second freaking mugshot. One mugshot for running away in the middle of the night after working 16 hours because of my ex-wife's her being mad. To this, we try not to talk about it because she can't. She doesn't want. I don't know why, but that one interaction is what gravitated me towards more men's groups, because I got a domestic violence charge from that. It was thrown out. It was dismissed. I was never found guilty of domestic violence, obviously. Through that, I violated something that wasn't even probation. Had to spend another night in jail because of the way the Florida booking system is taken. And then after the fact, I went to court for that. And I went up to the prosecutor and I said, look, I talked to the state attorney. There's nothing, the state attorney told me that there's nothing that says that I can't drink while on this weird probation, not probation thing. And he immediately went to the judge and said, we just want to close and dismiss this case. So all this freaking hassle, 2 nights in jail, charged with nothing, but the mug shots are still there for whatever reason. And according to John Scheafer, Nancy Scheafer's daughter, saw something from this fringe group, this wackadoodle group, Kara Zimmerman's group, Op Exposed CPS, calling me a child abuser because of this. Now, anybody in this community that would turn on a community member like that and try and take this situation where we're moving our community forward and trying to get help and make me look like a scumbag, make me look like a child abuser. You are the lowest of the low. It does not get lower than you, Kara Zimmerman, a.k.a. Faith Livingston, and your bearded lady friend, whoever you are. You two are truly scumbags. I don't think this has anything to do with Fran's people who don't like Fran. Maybe it does. I don't really care. But the fact of the matter is, we are all in this for a certain reason. And for me, as a man, to be charged with domestic violence, having done nothing, that led me down a path of extremist men's groups. And after seeing that, what I found is the larger goal is family law reform. And both men and women are victims of family law. And trying to stay away from fighting, I have a tendency to stay away from what I'm a victim of, ultimately, is Title 4D. Because it's from divorce, and men and women are continually bickering. So that's why I almost solely sometimes focus on CPS reform, because that is at the center, and you can still be married. I always give Raymond and Amelia Schwab as an answer, or as an example, because there are married couple whose kids were taken from them. And it's because of the same laws that are in Title 4D. Family court, I think, sets the example for parental relationships. But CPS is at the center of this. Having a private organization removing kids from perfectly good families in some instances. So there's my story. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I used to tell it in a way that really vilified my ex-wife, because at the time I had no love for her. I didn't really care about our relationship because it was far gone. But her and I worked together, and we've even talked about me moving closer once my hands are fixed and I can work again, so I can be part of their life again. So me even talking about this kind of risks that relationship. But if Nancy Scheafer, if you were listening, or John Scheafer, or any of the Scheafer family, I hope that brings to light whatever somebody accused me of in this fringe group, Op Exposed CPS, who I'm almost 100% sure is behind it. I'm a good person trying to do the best I can, and I love my son more than anything. And if I didn't love my son, I would have nothing to do with what I'm doing now. I can tell you that much. I'd be out doing whatever. And I'm not going to let fringe groups like that, or scumbags like Kara Zimmerman, or anybody, stop me from my goal of ending this for my son. I will not let family law continue the way it does, because I have a son that can be affected by it. If I left it alone, maybe he wouldn't be, but maybe he would, and I cannot live with the fact, I cannot live with the maybe he would. Nobody deserves to be treated the way I was in the family court system. Nobody deserves to have so much stress in their life right after getting through a recession, to the point where they get divorced, they're run out of business, they're made homeless, their health goes to hell. Can't be happening. And that's why I won't give up. So, with that, my story is done. How are you, Belinda?
I'm doing well. You know, we've said this for many years throughout these groups and meetings, that everybody has their own story. Everybody has been through their own turmoil and tragedies concerning their families. Yes. Which is what has brought each one of us to the forefront. I've personally been involved in these cases for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of people stabbing each other in the back and slitting each other's throats. And I've said this for years: you got to let them go. You can't even deal with them. They're not even worth. They're the enemy. Bottom line, if you know, even with you and Christy Duck's situation, y'all were able to shake your hands off, dust your feet off, and move on and continue on. You know, we don't see you bashing her. We don't see her bashing you. You both were adults about it, even though you had a little rough start in the beginning of the breakup. You still walked away, and you still both can hold your heads up, and you can each do your own thing.
Yeah.
Anybody in these organizations, I don't know Kara Zimmerman, never heard of her until this last year. I don't know her personally, have no personal interactions with her.
Run away as fast as you can. This person is the lowest of the low, and literally the single person to start creating turmoil in the Million Parrot March. Her being involved,
she won't cause turmoil for me or anything that I'm putting my hands on, because
not worth knowing.
If she wants to be removed and if she wants to cause problems and trouble at events, there's a thing called security for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's what we use security for.
Right.
So if people run their mouth prior to the event, the same thing's going to happen on any political platform. They're going to be watched, and if they start trouble, they're going to be removed. This is not a game. This is not your little high school kindergarten sandbox, toy box game.
Exactly.
This what we do is a profession. It is a professional platform. Yes, you know, there's many parents that have been affected, but there are some of us who are professionals in this arena, and we have zero tolerance for a reason. So I've told you before, and I will keep telling people who are willing to listen and take the advice of a professional, and that is, don't waste your time on bullshit. Bull crap, whatever you want to call it, whatever people want to call it, don't waste your time on it. Stick to your agenda. Remember who and what the real fight and battle is about. It's not between each other. It's just not. It's not in my book anyway. So,
if we're fighting each other, we don't have any energy to fight the enemy. And
well, that's why I say zero tolerance for it. Once you realize and recognize who these people are that are stabbing you in the back or trying to slit your throat on Facebook, get rid of them. They don't have to physically do harm to you to be an enemy.
Right.
You know, people's spirits, people's minds, people's souls, people's personalities, those are all things that make us a being, not just our flesh. So when people start throwing darts at our mind or our heart and our integrity and our personality, they got to go. They have got to go. Get rid of them off your plate. Don't talk to them. Whatever.
This is my advice, and this is something that I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way. It doesn't matter what somebody holds. If somebody holds a permit, let's say, and uses that as a string to say, hey, I have the permit, or I have the power, if you don't do what I say, things aren't going to go your way. If you ever get involved with somebody like that, then just stop. Stop. Take a break and walk away, because a rational, normal human being will never say, well, if I don't like you, then this, or if you block me, then that. They won't care. Facebook doesn't matter. It's just a way.
Well, I mean, it does matter, because believe it or not, some of the highest corporate jobs and governmental entities,
they check
Facebook, trust and believe me. So these twits that are out there posting garbage, you know, you don't even need them on your Facebook. You don't even need them as a friend. They're not a friend, and I don't know the girl personally. I don't care to know her. If I haven't met her, I'm almost 50 years old. odds are I probably don't need to meet her. I may have seen her in a crowd or something.
Right.
But, you know, anyone, and I'm not just saying her individually, I'm saying anyone who is a disruption is going to be exiting left very quickly.
If
They're
you go
not needed.
into a legislative building wearing a hoodie, then maybe you don't belong there. That's another telltale sign, and a lot of people can attest to that. If you're dancing crazy in D.C., creating a scene, you know, maybe you don't need to be involved with that person. If you're going behind people's back, accusing people of things that are false, you know, maybe you shouldn't be involved in this community, because what you're doing is detracting. You have caused so much harm to this community in such a broad spectrum, you know, from people running for governor, people trying to create events, people trying to get attention to different bills they're trying to pass. Everything that comes out of some people's mouth is negative. If you see that in somebody, just say goodbye. Just take it from me. Somebody who is so negative about what so many different people are trying to do to move us forward, somebody who can't support anybody, maybe that person should just be kind of forgotten about. And I'm not going to bash this person. I'm not going to bash Op Exposed CPS. I just don't have anything to do with them. They're a fringe group. Their opinion doesn't matter. They have nothing to do with family law reform or the family rights movement. They're literally worse than the courts in that they will there's more chance in them fighting us, who are fighting the family courts, than to fight the family courts themselves, because they really have no comprehension of what to do except try to get themselves attention. It's the weirdest thing, one of the stupidest, brainless things, and this group of a very few amount of people, maybe two people, Kara and the bearded lady, they have no future professionally, no future in enhancing or moving the movement forward. So what they will do is just stay in their little movement, their little bubble, and attack people who are trying to do the best they can. And so my advice to anybody who runs into these people or Op Exposed CPS, just literally delete them, block them, have nothing to do with them. Because if it wasn't for them, a lot of the relationships that fell apart during the Million Parrot March wouldn't have happened either. And
well, we all have to stay focused on what we're doing. Either people want to get on board or they don't. And just like any ship, you get a crew on a ship. If everybody's not rowing together the same way, whoever is rowing against the crew is going to be ousted.
Right, and there are many different ships. Many different crews.
These are, but you don't. We're not enemies, you know, and people need to quit treating this any of the events or movement activity as it's about us. It is about us to a point, but it's really about the children and the family unit of every American citizen.
Yes.
I mean, if people got their heads so far up their asses that they cannot get straight and real right about this, then they need to step off. And I know that might offend a lot of churchy kind of people, but I don't care. What I do care about is people getting right and getting real about what is going on, and quit shoving stuff underneath the carpet, and quit shoving the seriousness of what we're doing as if it's nothing, just shoving it off, you know, brushing it off like, well, it didn't happen to us, so we don't need to be involved in it.
Right.
Well, you know what? People, you know what? God has a funny way of showing people how any of this situation, whether it's CPS or parent alienation, in a private family law case, God has a very funny way of showing people how it feels to be done wrong.
Yeah. The people.
So for all the big mouths out there and all the little smart alecks who don't understand or don't care to understand because, well, you know, they must have done something wrong, you know. They must have deserved it. Well, yeah, there are some people who do deserve what they've gotten, but then there's some of us who have not done anything wrong to anyone, nor were we or have we ever been anything of what people have said about us in order to alienate us from our children.
And that's why we're all in this, you know. Brian Kinter.
Well, I'll say it again. God has a very funny way of making people see the light.
Yep.
So they better get their heads out of their tailpipe, and they better start realizing and recognizing, because they don't want God to tell them.
Right.
They do not want that. They do not want to go down the path of least resistance.
A lot of us have been victims of false accusations. Brian Kinter's story being one of the one that stands out in my head the most, and ultimately 7 years later, after wasting millions of dollars, the courts finally conceded, oh, okay, yeah, we realize you didn't do anything. Here's your daughter back. And for an organization, for dirtbags in our own community who lost their children for good reason and were in CPS themselves for good reason, for them to, because they're mad at their own life and their own misfortunes and their own deeds who got themselves into this, for them to attack members of our community who don't know anything other than defeat themselves and can only see defeat, for them to attack people who are really trying to move us forward. I mean, they are not. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not something that I would do. Try to push somebody down so much to make them fail. Even in my worst case, even in a place where I thought somebody had lied to me and did me wrong, I still supported that person because he was better than what we're used to. Never once would I ever consider accusing somebody of something that they never did. And for somebody to accuse me of abusing the thing that made me realize what actually love is, I mean, it's lower, more despicable than any. I really didn't think anybody would be capable of that. Not in this community. It's a new low that that really makes me rethink a lot of things. Whether I really should be fighting for this community, because I don't need to fight anymore. I'm an advocate. But my case is over. You know, if you guys want to be fighting this for the rest of your life, continue to bully and harass people. If you want to see this end, then support the people who have nothing to lose, like myself. I have done nothing wrong. I am able to see my son whenever I want to see my son. I'm fighting for you because I don't want this to exist. I don't think it's right. I think what we're doing as a whole is good for humanity. So maybe that's why we haven't seen a lot of these people. Like the video I opened with was Carlos Morales. I've never met him, never heard of him until recently, and he is right on the ball with everything. Why is it the last thing I'm seeing from him was 5 years ago? Did Op Expose CPS or one of these other scumbags go after him because he was starting to make progress? I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out. But I want to see
well,
us succeed.
The one thing that always tickles my fancy when people say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be making money, and you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing that." Well, here's what I have to say to everybody about what they have to say about what I do. If you are paying $80,000 to $100,000 per year, or otherwise making provisions for your clients to have free attorney representation in order to get their kids back in either CPS cases or private family law matters, you have no right, and you have no reason, and you have no background or backbone to be able to say one thing about what somebody else is doing.
Right.
If you call the Innocence Project up and you tell them that they shouldn't be taking donations, and they shouldn't be marketing, and they shouldn't be advertising, and they shouldn't be getting grants, you know what they're going to do? They're going to hang the phone up. They don't care what you think. Neither do we.
Right.
Neither do we. This entire entity and organization is set up for the purpose of fighting for people to get their kids back, and it's set up to stop corruption in the Department of Social Services and in family court.
Yep.
I might be the biggest cheerleader for every parent out there, but I'm not going to tolerate anybody telling me what I should or should not do.
Right.
Nor is the Innocence Project. They don't care what people think. What they care about are the people who are misjudged, mischaracterized, who are sitting in prison and have been for 20, 30 years on false charges.
Right.
That's who they care about.
Yeah.
And some of them care because they've personally been affected. Look them up. Look up the Innocence Project if you don't know who they are. They're all over the nation.
I'll play
and
a video.
They don't care what...
I'll play a video from the Innocence Project tomorrow concerning CPS.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
because I want people to understand this is not just about a little rally here, a little rally there. If that's all you're in it for, then you're in it for the wrong reason anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If these people are not doing something politically inclined or judicially inclined in their hometowns, they have zero voice. Zero.
Yep.
They have no right to come out and tell anybody else how or what they're doing.
See if I can
They have
find
zero
this.
rights. So we can address that. We can address that as well, because people like me and people like PK and a lot of other people don't want to lose or see someone such as yourself who cares enough about the entire global problem to do what? To sit and do what you do every day of your life for free? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm at my...
So tomorrow, I'm going to do my hair, and I'm going to do my makeup, and I'm coming on live.
Okay. Well, Terry LaPointe will be joining us tomorrow, too. She has the website Medical Kidnap. And, yeah, I applaud people who can take this nightmare of a situation and write a book or become a legal aid or a paralegal or a lawyer. Look at Connie. Connie regularly is fighting with us tooth and nail, and she makes a living in family court. There are other family court judges who do the same thing. Me, on the other hand, I way overextend myself to the point where I can't even get to the event that I'm hosting, and I have to sell my trailer to get there, and then people call me, say I'm taking money from like Francesca. I haven't taken.
Who cares? Shut their.
So what if
I did? Oh my God!
So what if?
La Boca.
Well, Belinda, you offered to help me if I really couldn't get there, and I said I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out myself. I don't want to owe anybody anything, but if you help me, is that a bad thing? If Francesca helped me, why is that a bad thing? Francesca writing a book.
It's just jealousy and envy in other people, and that you don't feed those types of individuals. Obviously, they have issues. mentally.
Yeah, no, I really don't understand why some people want to shoot ourselves in the foot. I get infighting, I get that people don't get along, but to accuse people of things that are blatantly not true is I've never seen us in such a low place, and you know, maybe after this event, this may be the last bit of advocating I do, and just because of this, if this is the natural trend of things for people who are trying to move us forward, who to just be run through the mud, bullied, targeted, if that's what the community of CPS reform is about, please let me know. If it's not, please let me know, because I'm on the edge here. You know, I don't like I said before, if all I'm going to do is get bashed for trying to help people, then I don't have to help people. It's as simple as that. So I can get back to my own life and concentrate on my son and have a happy life. You know, it's all about being happy, and what I want to make sure of is that my son doesn't go through this. But what I can do, I can make sure my son never goes through this. But what I'd like to do is make sure that he doesn't even have to know how not to go through this. I want this not to be a thought in anybody's head, because it shouldn't exist, period. And that's my goal, is to make sure that he never has to think about this. Or, like I said, I can stop, tell him what to watch out for, and if something bad happens to him, I know exactly what to do to make sure that he doesn't have to worry about it. Yes, it will cost time, money, resources that you shouldn't have to spend, but if what this community is about is bashing each other and undermining everything others do, then that's what I'll focus on, is my life and his life, and that's it. So with that being said, if we could get some support from you guys, just saying, like, we're excited about this event, we're going to this event, don't give up, don't pay attention to these fringe groups, these wackadoodles like Op Expose, CPS. Do everything you can, do the best you can, support everybody doing everything, and I'd really like to hear that positive message out there, and hopefully people whose help we're trying to solicit, like the Scheafers, hopefully we can convince them not to pay attention to these fringe groups that left a bad taste in their mouth to begin with, and to focus on the people who are positive and trying to make change. So with that, any last words before I see you tomorrow, Belinda?
No, I think I'll save it for tomorrow.
Okay. So completely different topic tomorrow. I'm not going to talk about this negative stuff anymore. It's onward and upward. Terry LaPointe will be joining us to talk about medical kidnap and her speech in Georgia. And Belinda will be joining us again as well. I love you all. Can't wait to see you. I'm leaving in 3 days. I'll see you right here tomorrow on the first annual Remembrance of Nancy Scheafer Georgia event, live at 5.
Now
concludes
the hour of action.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury.
To subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws.
All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
And we're going to take our country back from these people.